The extrovert tends to be what many organizations deem as model behavior, right? So where does that leave the introvert? How does a person with introverted tendencies succeed and grow their career in corporate America, though it's heavily modeled after extrovert behavior? But don't worry, a lot of questions, but we got the answers for you today. My name is Lissa Appiah, and this is How to Corporate, my digital show dedicated to helping you identify what's holding you back so you can advance your career. Are you ready for today's topic? Well, let's get started. Take a second to imagine a person at your job, in your industry, in your career in general, that you believe people respect, admire, overall consider as a model employee or a person to emulate, okay? Now, have a picture of that person in your mind. I'm going to describe two distinct personality traits to you, and let's see which one of those more likely fits the person you have in your mind, okay? So remember, right? This is a person in your industry, your job, your career that people respect, admire, and overall consider as a model employee, a person to emulate, okay? All right, here we go. Personality trait number one is self-aware and reflective. Takes time to make decisions. Feels comfortable being alone. Prefers to write things down versus talk. Feels tired after being in a crowd. Has few friendships, but very close with their friends. Retreats into their own mind to rest. All right, that's personality trait number one. Now, number two, has large social networks, enjoys being the center of attention, tends to think out loud, makes quick decisions, gains energy from being around other people, outgoing, enthusiastic, thrives in a team environment and open work setting. All right. So from personality trait number one versus number two, which one fits? So if you haven't caught on now, personality trait number one typically describes an introvert, and personality trait number two typically describes an extrovert. The extrovert tends to be what many organizations deem as model behavior, right? So where does that leave the introvert? How does a person with introverted tendencies succeed and grow their career in corporate America, though it's heavily modeled after extrovert behavior? But don't worry, a lot of questions, but we got the answers for you today. My mission is to help you identify what's holding you back in your career and show you examples of how to overcome so you can start winning. Lissa, I just kind of take it over to you for a second to kind of introduce you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I'm Lissa Appiah, and I'm the founder of We Apply, and I help talented introverts increase their visibility and marketability so that they can get promoted or hired at work while staying true to themselves. So the goal ultimately is not for them to become extroverts, but for them to find strategies to navigate the corporate world as introverts and succeed while staying true to themselves.
Awesome. And I think you hit on a key message there, right? Staying true to yourself, because especially in today's world, a lot of times we can feel pressure to kind of change ourselves or become something that we're not, right? And if we think about folks who we deem as being successful or are deemed as the model person to kind of go into X career, a lot of them may have extrovert, quote unquote, personalities. And so if I want to be able to have that same success, why should I have to necessarily become somebody that I'm not? So I guess my first question is, what would you say is probably the most challenging career setback or barrier that you've faced so far, just kind of being an introverted person?
For me, it's something that I realized very early on in my career that, the people who are often the loudest or who were the funny people who would, make jokes in meetings or who would just have more to say, not necessarily with a lot of substance or anything very valuable, but those people would tend to get noticed for opportunities because they were deemed as, charismatic, and they were the type of people who were often sought after for high profile projects that had more visibility, or for things that were significant in your career advancement. So early on, I realized that, this is a trend in the corporate world or in the workplace generally. And so I just started trying to find ways to navigate around that. Obviously, stepping out of my comfort zone and putting myself out there, being more vocal, speaking up in the workplace. And I think the biggest thing is, and this is being an introvert, but I think it's definitely cultural as well. Just this idea of self-promotion for me for a long time. I was like, I don't know why I need to start bragging. Like, why are we even doing this? Like, I'm doing the work. I'm doing it well.
Everyone should see it. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I realized that that's not the case. So that's something I definitely had to learn in the early days of my career.
No, that's, I think that's powerful. And you touch on a few things, but I think that last point is something that kind of resonates with me the most is being able to share your knowledge, share your experiences, share what you're doing, and for people to be able to recognize what you're doing. That can be a really big challenge for people to kind of overcome, right? Especially if you think about somebody who is more naturally introverted. They're all about the work. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to do it well. And I expect that, the performance that I have speaks for itself, right? Mm-hmm. That the results I get from that, how much how hard I work because you see it in what I do every day. But we know, especially right in your business and helping people navigate their careers, that's not always the case. There are a lot of folks who, for some reason, they get at a barrier or they get halted or they get passed over for opportunities because they're not recognized for being possibly a star performer or a strong performer or being very valuable, to their organization. So I think that's a really big key that you touched on that I think a lot of people face. So, for you, how did you have to kind of maybe reshape how you started to approach that? Hey, if you're enjoying what you're hearing and learning something new, take a second to rate this episode and write a review. Oh, don't forget to share with a friend or a colleague. All right, back to the show.
So there's a couple of different things. First, I identified the areas that I wanted to work on. So one of them being, owning my accomplishments, being able to speak up in meetings. I gave myself like a goal. I would challenge myself to say, okay, in this meeting, I'm going to say at least one thing. And the way that I did that is, often when you have meetings, they'll send the agenda ahead of time. So or you have a sense of what the meeting is going to be about. You have a sense of where the conversation is going to go. And if it was directly related to the kinds of files that I was involved with, it was obviously an opportunity for me to showcase the work that I was doing. Mm-hmm. So instead of staying in the background and just listening in, and, sometimes what I would do is like after the meeting, I would like go to one person and be like, hey, by the way, but that isn't enough because not everybody heard it, right? Mm-hmm. So I would challenge myself to, in the meeting, at least say one thing. I obviously started with smaller groups, so whether it's just my immediate team until I got comfortable with talking in the bigger groups. That's kind of how I did it. And I consistently did it and challenged myself to do so, and yeah, sometimes it happened. I didn't say something the right way and I would beat myself up for it, but I would learn and I would keep going. In terms of public speaking, very similar in my approach of just being able to challenge myself and have those opportunities to be able to speak publicly and to do it. It's really about just having the opportunity and going after it. Preparing ahead of time is very, very crucial. And still to this day, if I am going to speak in front of a crowd or I have, a Zoom presentation speaking engagement, I have to prepare. And it's just something that helps me in terms of the nerves and helps me in terms of taking ownership of the conversation. So preparation is very important. Another thing over time I realized is that it's not that I couldn't do it. It was more that I needed to do it at my own pace. So I realized that I would need like a couple of minutes before the event to just like get my energy together and, go into it. And then after the event as well, or after the presentation, just take a couple of minutes as well to recharge and not like, some people, they'll do a speaking event and then they're in the crowd and going around talking. So that's not me. Like after I'm done talking, I go to the back and I'm by myself until I can like put it all
you gotta
together.
Bring yourself. No, that's fair. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly. And then if, it's a networking event, I'm okay to talk to people and to interact and all that. So, just learning those things about yourself, just learning how to navigate that. And at the end of the day, you are capable of doing all these things as an introvert. It's just finding strategies for yourself that will help you show up as who you truly are.
That's awesome. That's the ton of great gems there. I mean, you hit on so many different things, and I'm going to try to cover a couple of them, but, I really liked that idea of decompressing, especially after you kind of are giving your all, whether it be in a presentation, a meeting, public speaking engagement. You're running on a 10 going through that whole thing. And then right afterwards, you kind of have to keep running. But when you get a second to kind of take a step back, kind of really absorb what you just did and then reset your mind to go on to the next thing that you're doing. I think that's a really, really awesome tool and example of how to be really reflective, right? Especially in the moment of what you're doing. We don't always have opportunities to get real-time feedback. I think getting feedback is also a really big piece, what it sounds like you have been doing too. If you're in a meeting and you speak up about something, or you make a statement or a question, you pose a question, asking a coworker or asking a colleague, asking someone that you trust, right? Their opinion, their advice, and say, hey, what do you think about that? I know I kind of spoke a little bit about X, Y, and Z. How do you think that was? Did that sound natural? Did that, especially if it's new for you, right? It can be very nerve-wracking, and you can really beat yourself up on, it's like, oh man, I sounded so stupid. I sounded ridiculous. You can really just get in your head around, what you think you sounded like. And if you really just get that direct feedback and they're like, no, you sounded fine. It was okay. It was just nothing out. Seemed weird to me, but if we don't get that real-time feedback, we can really just get in our mind around what we're trying to accomplish, right? And you can almost lose steam from maybe going out and doing it again or trying it again. So I think that's awesome. And remaining consistent, like you talked about, being prepared. And this is not, again, just for introverts. I think a lot of the skills that you're talking about apply for everybody, but I think if you're trying something new that's uncomfortable for you, right, which I think is the element that we're talking about here, these are really great tools in general. Being prepared, there's no substitution for being prepared, right? When you know that you're about to walk into a situation that you studied for, you spent the time to practice, you spent the time to prepare and walk into a situation, whether it's a public speaking engagement, whether it's an interview, whether it's a salary negotiation, whether it's anything pertaining to your career, preparation is most definitely key. I think they say you play how you practice, right? So I think that's real. So
yeah, for sure. I agree.
And when people don't practice, it shows. So and that's not 100% of the time, right? There's some people that can fly, you know, can go right off the cuff and just boom. But when you know someone gets up there and it's kind of shooting off the hip,
you can tell for sure.
You can tell, and that's not a good look, right? So
no, completely agree with what you've been sharing, and you know, it goes across the board. You know, it's just really anything that you're really stepping out of your comfort zone to be able to do requires practice. It requires you being intentional about it and accepting the fact that it won't be perfect at first, but you can learn and you can grow from there.
For sure. So let me ask you this. Did you have any mentors or sponsors or folks that you kind of had, you know, coached you up as you were going through this, right? I mean, clearly you're a coach now, so you've had the opportunity to coach a lot of people throughout your business as a career coach and strategist. But, you know, did you have somebody in your corner to kind of bounce off these consistent questions and say, to help you kind of get to where you were going as you were trying to kind of maybe redefine some of these areas in your life? Hey, if you're enjoying what you're hearing and learning something new, take a second to rate this episode and write a review. Oh, don't forget to share with a friend or a colleague. All right, back to the show.
It's honestly part of the reason why I do what I do today, because I didn't have a coach or, you know, I mean, 10, 12 years ago, I didn't even know what a career coach was. So I didn't even think of, you know, looking it up or getting someone, but I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have a sponsor or anyone like that who was helping me navigate all these things. So it was really just me learning on my own, reading and just trial and error almost. And that's really, at the end of the day, what a coach really helps you do, right? It helps you avoid a lot of the mistakes and just helps you get to your destination a lot quicker because you have the appropriate strategy that works for you. So I didn't necessarily have that. So I would say it obviously took a lot longer to get to where I wanted to be, but I was still able to get there. And, you know, today, even with my clients or just talking to professionals generally, if you can get a coach, for sure, get a coach, but even a mentor, a sponsor, anyone that you can discuss these things with and have real conversations of also just how it's making you feel, how you are seeing your career, how things are progressing. It's very important to have someone to talk to about these things.
I think it's interesting for you to have said that you don't, right? You've never had a coach in that way, because I think sometimes we get the perception that, you know, everybody, you have a mentor, you know, you got somebody in your corner to kind of help you out along the way, but you don't know, right? You don't know that person's story. Just because you're a coach today and you're out helping a lot of people, you know, I think it's interesting to share that, hey, I'm doing this because I didn't feel like I had that same support. But I think it's important to point out and showcase that you still went out and figured it out nonetheless.
And today, obviously, you know, with what I know, even in business or just generally, obviously now I do have coaches and I do see the difference in, you know, whether it's me trying to achieve a certain target or whatever in business, trying to figure it out on my own. I could have, but, you know, YouTube and Google will only take you that far. But being able to learn from a coach who's had that experience, who's gone through that, who has gone through the experience with several clients as well, is so invaluable. So it can make the world of a difference.
Yeah, no, I mean, 100%. I think hopefully most folks and folks I think listening to this understand the importance of having some form of coaching in their lives. I mean, that's really what this platform is all about. It's a sense of being coached through other people's experiences, right?
Exactly.
I'm being coached through your experience right now, and you're coaching everyone who's listening right now. So do not discount the importance and the value that a coach can bring. But I think it's also important to recognize that a coach doesn't always have to be so formal. I mean, there are a lot of people in our lives who
Mm-hmm.
wind up being coaches who don't even realize that they are, right? So, I mean, think about, your friends who you look up to, or you admire. Of course, clearly your parents, right? Professors, teachers, other people in your life who what, there's a trait about you that you really have this piece down. And I would love to learn from you in a particular way. Can I spend more time with you? Can I pick your brain? Can I ask you more questions? Can I maybe get your feedback about something that I'm working on? So don't think of it, and again, clearly this platform is geared towards career coaching, but just recognize that a lot of the things that we're talking about today are soft skills, right? These are soft skills.
Yeah.
They're applicable to life, not just work, right? Yeah. They're applicable to life. So there are people, I'm sure, in your life, for the folks listening today, who can help you with building relationships, who can help you with being able to speak up, right, during meetings, being able to feel confident about your speech, being able to have the discernment to know what to say and when to say, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's something to highlight there too, that, we all have coaches in our lives, and we just have to be able to see that sometimes, the forest from the trees. Pivot a little bit, getting back to, we talked about a lot of different things here today. And to those folks thinking that, what, I think I'm fine the way that I am. I'm good with my person. I'm good with everything that I'm doing. I think I'll be able to figure out, what would you say to that, and how maybe what their future outlook could be in their own careers?
Mm-hmm. I think firstly, it all depends on what your goal is ultimately. If you are in a role, you're very comfortable in your role, and you're not looking to move, or you're not looking to progress, then hey, do you, and it's all good, right? But we all have different goals ultimately. And so that kind of will dictate the effort or the areas that you want to improve on and that you want to excel in. We all have things that we can work on, whether you're an introvert, you're an extrovert. None of us can say that we're absolutely perfect and that we've arrived, or we've all have something that we can work on and improve, but at the end of the day, it all depends on whether you want to do so or not. The goal will be a determining factor. Willingness will be a determining factor. And then also just understanding work culture. Depending on the type of job you have, it may not be necessary for you to do any of this. Maybe your job is to be a scientist in a lab, and you work by yourself with your headphones all day, and that's all you're supposed to do, then
for sure,
that's all good, right?
Yep.
But just knowing your industry, knowing the employer, understanding the work culture, all of that will have an impact on the way forward. So definitely what I would say is just take the time to look at your own career roadmap, understand where it is you want to go and what is missing to take you from where you are now to where you want to be. And if that involves speaking up, if that involves putting yourself out there to own your accomplishments, and you're willing to put in the time and effort to learn how to do that, then for sure go for it. But at the same time, it all depends on how willing you are to put in the effort. And I think for me, the thing that has been, I guess, the most rewarding thing is that at the beginning, it's like you're putting in a lot of time, a lot of effort. You feel bad when you screw up, but then you get to a point where it's like, no, I can do this. I've figured it out, it's not necessarily something that's natural, but I know how to turn on that switch, and I know how to play the game when I need to. So you get to that point where it just becomes part of who you are, and you're not, it's just something that you know how to do. And that's ultimately what you want to learn so that you can navigate the corporate world.
Honestly, being able to recognize your environment, right? Like you mentioned, if you're a scientist or a data analyst, and you look at, microorganisms and numbers all day, maybe you don't necessarily need to pick up any of these skill sets, but like we mentioned, right? These are skills for life. So even if they don't necessarily apply to work, they could apply to other, areas of your life, interacting with your kids, or if you're in other nonprofit organizations or other organizations that you want to try to pick up some new skill sets for. So nonetheless, like you mentioned, willingness and effort and being able to stay consistent with it till it becomes more innate in you, I think is keys to success there. So thank you so much for that. And we'll start to bring this to a close. But Lissa, you've been awesome. You've been fantastic. I really appreciate your time. And I hope for the folks listening, all my introvert buddies out there, I don't know what I am. I don't know if I'm introvert or extrovert. Maybe I'm both, ambivert. I don't know, honestly. So I probably got to take some more of those tests to see, because a lot of these things resonate with me. So, but I'm interested to see what other people would say about me. But I think it's big to be able to recognize where you feel like you are and to feel like you have a place, right, and a voice out there. And I think you continue to provide a voice for those out there that may or may not feel like they have a voice. So awesome. And thank you for everything you do there. So I did want to take a second to maybe allow you to, of course, to share your contact information in your platform. So that way, anybody who's listening to this thinking like, man, Lissa's really hitting the nail on the head, and I would love for her to coach me. I want people to be able to reach out to you and do so. So if you want to share maybe your contact information, how people can get a hold of you.
Sure. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Lissa with 2 S's, and you can find me there and we can chat there. Or my website is www.weapply.ca. And the program that I have specifically for introverts is the Notice to Promoted Career Mentorship. And that's all about helping introverts navigate the corporate world so that they move up and advance in their careers.
Awesome. So, well, no, appreciate it. Thank you again. Bring this to a close. Thank you guys for listening. Tune in until next time. Peace.
Thank you.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. For more content, click the link in my bio to follow How to Corporate on all social media platforms. Until next time, keep building.